Good afternoon and welcome to the Southern Planning Committee. So if you hear a fire alarm, it could well be real because we're not expecting a drill. So if you could exit and gather in the front of the building, which is that way, the way that most of you will have come in. Thank you. So we are now live streamed, so this is being recorded. The live stream only picks up what's happening around the table and is set on mic. For that reason, I'd ask councillors and officers to name themselves unless they're introduced, so that people on the live stream know who's speaking, and that makes it a lot clearer. As always, everybody, can you turn your mobile phones, etc., to silent to ensure that we're not interrupted during the meeting? And I hope the audience will respect the committee and not interrupt while we're debating the issues. It's a difficult planning application today. It's a tough one. So we need to get our deliberations right and make the right decision. So next thing is apologies for absence.
We've had apologies from Councillors Josh Dickin and Elizabeth Barker.
Okie doke. Could I ask members of the committee and officers around the table to introduce themselves, beginning with Kim to my right.
Kim Brown, solicitor.
Tim Ward, committee officer.
Joanne Thomas, solicitor.
Sam Wormsley, councillor for Clun Division.
Caroline Bagnall, councillor for Broseley.
George Holyhead, councillor for Brownlee.
Beverly Wade, councillor for Ludlow East.
Nick Ignat, councillor for Ray Valley.
Nigel Lumbey, councillor for Albrighton.
Rachel Connolly, councillor for Bridge North West and Tassley.
Colin Taylor, councillor for Bridge North South and Alverley.
Chris Mead, senior developing highways manager for Shropshire Council.
Ben Scattergood, planning officer.
Tab Phillip, planning and development services manager.
Lynn Parker, principal planning officer.
Emma Green, area planning manager.
And I'm Andy Boddington, Shropshire councillor for Ludlow North. Thank you. Now we come to the minutes of the last meeting. They look fine to me. Would anybody like to propose those? Oh, we've got two. I'll just take Councillor Taylor first and Councillor Hignett to second. So can we just have a quick show of hands? Okie doke. That's three. There are no public questions. So we get down to the meat of the issue. First of all, actually, I've got to do disclosable interests. That's pecuniary and other interests, such as if you're a ward member where this application is. Okay, Councillor Connolly.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as the councillor for Bridge North West and Tassley, I need to declare an interest for item 5 on the agenda and won't be voting.
It's fine.
Yes, Councillor Holyhead, I've got to declare that as well, that the agenda item 5, it does come into part of my ward in Moreville, so I also won't be voting.
Okay. Is that a lot? Okay, thank you very much, folks. So the first and only substantive item today is the proposed residential and commercial development at Tassley. So, Lynn, you are presenting.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. Firstly, our apologies to Moreville Parish Council as their representation submitted on the 10th of June was inadvertently omitted from the committee report. These comments have been added in full at the beginning of the schedule of additional letters. Secondly, I should confirm that the environmental statement addendum received on the 10th of December was advertised in the Shropshire Star on the 23rd of December, setting out the statutory 30-day period for comments in that respect. Thirdly, we have received around 20 further additional representations following the publication of the additional representations document last night, including from Councillor Connolly and Councillor Hoosman, who are speaking today. No new issues have been raised in those additional representations. He didn't submit any. It's Councillor. Sorry, did you submit another representation? Yeah. I'm just talking about the representations that have been submitted since 5 o'clock.
Apologies, my mistake.
No problem. Okay. This is an outline planning application with all matters reserved with the exception of access. Access is included in detail in the form of 3 new junctions. A priority T junction Ghost Island right turn on the A458 to serve the employment land. A 3-arm priority controlled roundabout located approximately 40 metres west of the existing A458 Wenlock Road junction to serve the western section of residential land. A 3-arm priority controlled compact roundabout located approximately 200 metres south of the A458 B4364 Ludlow Road roundabout to serve the eastern section of residential land. Based on Garden Village principles, the development is proposed to include 1,500 dwellings, approximately 14.6 hectares of employment land, a 2-form entry primary school, country park, extensive public open space and sustainable travel routes, substantial landscaping and B&G, and sports pitches including a 3G pitch and associated pavilion. The applicant's vision for Tasley Garden Village is set out in the submitted design and access statement as: the site provides a unique opportunity on the edge of Bridgnorth to create a new neighbourhood based on Garden Village principles. The new neighbourhood will have a distinct character and sense of place, but will respect and reflect local vernacular and make best use of the varied attributes of the site. The site abuts the southeastern edge of Bridgnorth and comprises 112.3 hectares of countryside. It's a generally level patchwork of agricultural fields which slope downwards from the northeast to the southwest. In this slide, you can see how the site spans 3 parishes, with the majority area under Tasley Parish Council, Bridgnorth Town Council dipping into the eastern side of the site, and Morville Parish Council covering an inset section. So, this is the bit that is Morville Parish Council, majority is Tasley, and there are some bits of Bridgnorth Town Council that come in on this side. You can see it from there. And there. The existing public footpaths are marked by the pink dashed line. Flood zones 2 and 3 are in blue, and the 2 listed buildings at the Lesos and Lesos Farm are located centrally within the site, annotated by the red houses. So these 2 here. You should all have a paper copy of this plan to better see the details. However, I'll point out some of the main areas and features for clarity, and these will also become more apparent in the forthcoming slides. So, the employment zone at the top there, the local centre here, the sports pitches here, country park on this side. Main points of access are here, there, and 1 for the employment site, but I'll go into those later. Okay. The land use parameters plan is your next paper copy. This sets the zones or areas for different uses. The zones include, as appropriate, roads, incidental open space and associated infrastructure. The sports pavilion includes associated car parking. The mixed-use local centre incorporates commercial, retail and residential, including specialist housing. And the green infrastructure covers public open space, amenity space, equipped play areas, sports pitches, water bodies, drainage utilities and service infrastructure, footpaths and cycleways. Again, you have a paper copy of this access and movement parameters plan to enable you to read the key. This plan lays the proposed accesses and movement routes over the parameters. Essentially, the main spine road is shown in yellow and is the intended bus route. Blue star shows the proposed bus link point between the employment land and the spine road. This is intended as one way, with the bus entering the site through the Z01 access and leaving through the Z03 access. So the blue star is up here. The proposed bus route is through the employment site, onto the spine road and throughout onto the B road. Pavement links are proposed between the Z01 access, Z02 roundabout and approved Tasley Gateway roundabout, and from the Z03 access up to the Ludlow Road roundabout. The dotted lines indicate the intended active travel routes. Your key for this one is on your next paper copy. This parameter plan shows the extent of public open space proposed together with the retained trees and hedgerows marked. These are the elements on which the layout on the illustrative master plan has been formed. You can also see from the satellite image on the right how the pattern and form of the land has been largely retained. Additionally, when viewed together with the constraints plan on the left, the country park is proposed to be located where the land clips into flood zones 2 and 3, creating opportunities for providing and enhancing blue infrastructure. So you can see the curve of the country park and the curve of the flood zone. There are 6 locations identified for equipped play areas, and these are shown as the purple and yellow stars. Yellow star, purple star, 6 altogether. The complexities of this play strategy drawing are better viewed on your paper copy. The plan shows the indicative locations for equipped play areas. These are positioned at the recommended offset distances and walking distances from dwellings. The strategy also indicates additional opportunities for indicative play on the way in yellow and outdoor gym features in light blue. So your strip of outdoor gym features is there. And the indicative play on the way are the yellow points here, the smaller yellow points. Fitness routes are annotated by the dark blue lines. The green and blue infrastructure features and play areas are brought together in this illustrative plan to provide an overview of the landscape strategy. I've not added the key on the image as it's extensive. However, the numbered elements provide an indication of some of the features that are proposed to be included. For example, the community growing area at number 7 and the cycle skills track at number 2. I'll now go on to the 3 access points, which, as a reminder, are there, there, and here. This slide shows the proposed employment access, which is a priority T junction with Ghost Island right turn lane on the A458. It will be used exclusively for the employment zone and is designed to accommodate HGVs. The dedicated footway and cycleway on the southern side of the carriageway would extend up to the A458 residential access to the west. The inset in the top right shows the location of this junction in red, together with the locations of the other proposed junctions, and the position of the roundabout previously approved as part of the Tasley Gateway development, drawn in pink. Gateway roundabout. This plan shows the footpath and cycleway here, which extends back down to the residential access. Here we have the 3-arm priority controlled roundabout proposed as a residential access off the A458. This element includes a 4-metre wide toucan crossing 60 metres to the west, with footways and cycleways on its south side from the development, from the employment zone, and extending from the crossing to the north side towards Wenlock Road, leading into Bridgnorth Town Centre. So the footways and cycleways extend that way to the employment access, into the site, and across to the toucan, over to the toucan crossing, and then they link in with the Tasley Gateway pavements, which then go into Bridgnorth Town Centre. The image on the right shows the 3-arm priority controlled compact roundabout, which is proposed as a residential access off the B4364. There is a pedestrian crossing with tactile paving on the western arm of the roundabout. That's into the development. And a footway and cycleway extending up to the Ludlow Road roundabout, where it would link with the existing public right-of-way. Here. This is indicated in the image on the left. Here there is a second toucan crossing proposed together with the formalisation of existing crossings to facilitate walking and cycling into Bridgnorth Town Centre. The photograph of Ludlow Road is included to indicate the existing refuge island there would be widened. The accesses are proposed in conjunction with a reduction in speed limit to 40 miles an hour along both the A458 and B4364 shown in green on this plan. This will be complemented by associated signing and road markings with a detailed signage strategy to be agreed with the local highways authority as part of the final design works. A 30 miles per hour speed limit would apply within the proposed development and as existing into Bridgnorth along Wenlock and Ludlow roads. The position of the Tasley Gateway roundabout is again shown in pink. I've included this policy context image as it shows the allocations as set out in the now withdrawn draft local plan, but which form a key part of the evidence base as a material consideration in the decision-making process for this application. Allocation BRD 030 on the left-hand side of the plan, together with the area marked for potential future direction of growth, are the application site. You can see how they abut residential allocations BRID 02A and BRID 001 and 020B, and employment allocations ELR 011A and B, all of which form the Tasley Gateway development, which has been supported under the adopted local plan. BRD 030 is additionally indicated to fall within the Bridgnorth development boundary. All the land to the east of the River Severn, cross-hatched pink, is within the green belt, which, taken together with topographical and landscape constraints in other directions, means that an expansion to the west side of Bridgnorth is the best option. This is all the green belt. This image shows the land use parameter plan for the adjoining Tasley Gateway development, together with the illustrative master plan for Tasley Garden Village on the left. The red area denotes land for the relocated livestock market with associated lairage. And the blue is also for employment use, with associated landscape and suds and a potential pub and hotel. The green areas are green infrastructure buffers located around the built environment and boundary. Buffers have also been applied around this boundary within the Tasley Garden Village site. Moving on to Garden Village principles. The same principles of the original garden cities, garden and model villages to create well-designed, healthy places, social communities and affordable homes should be applied for new garden villages today. However, in a 21st century context to provide vibrant, diverse and affordable communities. The proposed development is designed to fulfil the objectives for new garden villages as set out on the screen, and additionally, the circular visual from the National Design Guide sets out the 10 characteristics of a well-designed place, which the applicant has responded to in their design and access statement. A well-designed place takes account of lifespan, context, identity, built form, movement, nature, public spaces, uses, homes and buildings, and resources under the character, community and climate mantle overarching the development. Here I've included some up-to-date street view images of existing garden cities. At top, at Bourneville, founded in 1879, Letchworth in the middle, founded in 1903, and Amington at the bottom, a recently commenced garden village to the east of Tamworth, where some phases are still under construction. This image is taken from the submitted design and access statement and aims to demonstrate how a balanced and active lifestyle for all who subsequently live in the proposed development would be achieved. This is your last printed page for better reading of the smaller text. It indicates how the easy access to nature, modern amenities and well-planned transport links are intended to benefit multiple ages and lifestyles, in line with new garden village principles, and these benefits do not exclude use by existing Bridgnorth residents. This application is the first step in a 10-year plus development for a sustainable urban extension enhancing the status of Bridgnorth, where its realisation would reduce the development pressure on smaller settlements in the county, and where Bridgnorth has been identified for growth and will require additional development sites. The last few slides are visuals for the operational phase of Tasley Garden Village and summarise the benefits and summaries of the benefits which will be gained through it. These figures below are derived from the latest available statistics, including from the Office for National Statistics, Ministry of Housing and Shropshire Council Local Housing Need Assessment 2020. I've returned to the illustrative master plan for the final view, which is back to your top paper copy. As set out in the committee report, the application proposes a scheme which has been developed in a strategic manner that reflects national planning objectives to provide multiple benefits on a sustainable site. The balancing exercise for this site is weighed heavily in favour of approval, and there are no other material considerations which, when weighed in the planning balance, outweigh the presumption in favour of development. Members are requested to support officer's recommendation for approval of outline planning permission with delegated powers to officers to finalise the conditions based on those set out in Appendix 1 of the committee report, and securing of developer contributions as set out in paragraph 6.4.2 of the committee report, including the completion of a section 106 agreement. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lynn. We must buy you a pointer to make your life a bit easier. Are there any immediate questions for Lynn? Yes, Councillor Lumley.
Yes, in some of the late submissions, we've heard from the developer across the road, so to speak, about where the market is and its closeness to the school and other dwellings, and that we both granted, if both were granted outline planning consent, maybe this then would influence where that market could go, and in fact negate it going there at all. And they've suggested that then that makes the whole thing unsustainable. I just wondered what the planners thought about that. Explain. Thank you.
Through your chair, I'll see if I can help there, Councillor Lumley. So if you turn to your landscape strategy plan, what that helpfully indicates is the potential location of the livestock building and the air quality supports which came in with the outline application for the Tasley Gateway development. So what is unknown at this point is the precise location that that's going to go. As Lynn showed, there was the that outline application as granted is subject to a parameters plan, which is shown in the slides, which gives an indication and an idea about where that building will go. Obviously, when the reserve matters are worked up, that will go into there. So the developers of this site took on board the information that was presented with that application and used that to influence and inform how they put the development around it. So they've chosen the position that they used in their air quality statements as a justification as to where that's going to go. And my understanding is that the 120 metre standoff that's recommended to go with that will eat into this development site. There is a buffer within it, within their own land of the Tasley Gateway, but it will have an impact on this site. But those areas have been designed to be space, outdoor space for the school or outdoor space surrounding the whole development. So what will then happen is, obviously, as we move both applications through to their reserved matters, if both are granted on the table, we'll have to have that wider consideration of those detailed impacts when the details of those two reserved matters come forward. Whichever one comes first will influence the other one. I hope that offers a bit of an explanation as to where we've got the master plan in front of us and how those interrelate.
So you believe the two could be accommodated?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Any other questions at this stage? Yes, Councillor Waite.
Thank you, Chair. The sports facilities seem to be at the far end of the estate. Is it possible to move that anywhere else so that people visiting that wouldn't be driving through the residential estate, or is that kind of set in stone?
The developers have carried out an exercise as part of their documentation, I think it's in the design and access statement, where they have gone through where best to locate the sports pitches, and it comes down to a site that is proposed for the sports pitches is the best location. It would be accessed internally rather than from the B43 from the Ludlow Road.
Okay, Councillor Holly?
So sorry, would it be fair to say that the developers investigated themselves and found that their own plan's perfectly fine?
I don't think there's a particular need for an answer to that, is there? Unless, okay. So, we now move on to speakers. There'll be opportunity for other questions later on in the meeting. And we, our first speaker in favour of the proposal is Rob Woodcock from Bridgnorth Spartans. If you come to the microphone and press the right hand button. You've got 3 minutes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time today. Chair, members of the committee, my name's Rob Woodcock. I'm the Vice Chair of Bridgnorth Spartans, and I'm going to speak to you on behalf of Bridgnorth Spartans today in relation to the proposed community sports facility within this planning application. As a club, we're made up of local people, volunteers and families, and we understand the depth of feeling in the community about the Tashley Garden Village proposal. We know this development matters to many residents, and throughout the process with Spartans have respected and listened to those views. As a sports club, we've stayed focused through this process on sport and the community, and what's best for sport, young people and the community. And on that basis, we support the development and the inclusion of the sports facility within it. We're here because the proposal is about one main thing. It's about connectivity, connecting Tashley to Bridgnorth, connecting families to sport, connecting people to each other. This is about bringing people and the community together. Spartans has served Bridgnorth for nearly 40 years. Every week we support over 350 children and young people and over 100 adults into sport. And we see every week that sport supports confidence, belonging and well-being. We see lives shaped through sport. One of the most powerful things we see is families coming together, all sharing moments of pride and support. Those moments build strong communities and strong families. Spartans works across the life course, from children as young as 4 to adults in their late 70s and even early 80s. This is lifelong community sport. This is not a single club venue, the facility. The facility would be open to all clubs that could use the facility. The door would be absolutely wide open, and our aim is to create something for people to feel like they belong and own. Our guiding principle is simple: developing young people and communities through sport and football. 40 years, that's been our practice. It's not just a slogan. Bridgnorth Spartans is ready. We're rooted in community, we're accountable, we're experienced, we're committed, and this facility will connect Tashley to Bridgnorth and welcome all ages.
Okay.
And on this basis, we respectfully ask you to support this proposal and allow us to deliver a sustainable, inclusive community sports facility for generations to come.
Thank you, Mr. Woodcock.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Woodcock?
As one of the other councillors alluded to earlier, that you're right at the very bottom of the development, which means that all your families that are travelling by car have got to come through it. Are you happy with where you've been placed on that site, or would you have preferred to be slightly higher?
I think the positioning will work for us. It would be, I fully understand why it's not more centrally located. You know, it will be, you know, community hub. That's what we're aiming to do. So, you know, we aim to have a facility that's opened all day through the day and getting used by the community all through the day. So the positioning, even though it's where it is, will still work for us. Obviously, our one of our concerns is the timescale to when that would get built, and that's a worry for us. But you know, whatever that timescale is, it would give us ample time to get everything in place that we need to deliver the facility that we aim to.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just looking at the plans here. I have two questions. First of all, will the clubhouse be purely for getting changed or perhaps having a coffee afterwards, or are there other community facilities there?
We're hopeful, and the plan that, you know, that we've looked at, obviously that's not agreed in any way, shape or form, and then is negotiable, to create enough space in it for there to be a community activity space, so social, also an educational space as well. We've linked with Telford College and got some early conversations going with them regarding using the facility in the daytime. I know it's way down the line, but I think it shows our intention that this is very much about a community hub that's around sport. Obviously, we're a football club. We've been around for 40 years, but we understand the impact and positive impact of sport in general. So, you know, the door will be open to as many clubs that can use the facility. And in
I was thinking not sports clubs. I was thinking about you know, as a community space.
Yeah, 100%.
And the other thing I was going to ask is about parking. I know in my community we have huge difficulties on match days and training days with parking on, you know, the roads leading up to the pitches, because we don't have a big enough car park. Are you confident that the amount of space that you've been allocated will be sufficient not only for your clubhouse but also for this kind of level of parking that's going to be needed when you've got a match day where you might have several teams taking part in matches?
You're talking to someone that specialises in parking in our football club. It's my designated task. There's always challenges. You can never sort of really predict how many people are going to turn up to watch a game. We implement certain measures when we do have busy match days, and some of our facilities to ask people to share share vehicles. However, with the space that's being provided at the moment on the plan, we're confident that we can make that work. Obviously, a few more parking spaces would be helpful, but I think we can make that work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we have David Coe. Can I just request that you sit down so that we're sure the mic is picking you up, and your place in posterity that will then be preserved. And if you press the right hand button, that's it.
David Coe, owner of the land east of Tiddlebrook, directly southwest. Chair, members of the committee, you will have read my written objections, and I ask that these be fully considered as part of your decision today. However, today I want to focus on the personal impacts on our land and livestock, matters which engage both planning and human rights law. Our land is not vacant countryside. For over 20 years, it has been home to horses, sensitive flight animals. The proposed floodlit football pitches immediately adjacent to all our boundaries create foreseeable risks, noise disturbance, light spill, trespass and harm to animals. A football complex directly abutting an equestrian holding is simply incompatible. Members must recall the planning application concerning our land. In that case, the council imposed a lifetime condition restricting our riding arena to private use only. The reason given, I have it here, was to protect the character of this very rural area. This has set a clear precedent. How can the same council now justify the permanent urbanisation over 100 hectares, including football pitches, in the exact location without undermining consistency and fairness in decision making? Article 1 of the Human Rights Law, we're entitled to the peaceful enjoyment of our land and our livestock and their possessions in law. Article 8 protects respect for private and family life and home. The courts have recognised that serious noise and light intrusion can engage those rights. In case law Coventry versus Lawrence, the courts confirmed that planning permission does not authorise nuisance. Granting permission does not remove liability where neighbouring landowners suffer interference. If this committee is minded to approve, I strongly urge, firstly, that the football pitches be relocated and replaced with Country Park. On a development of this scale, there is no justification for floodlit sport to be positioned directly against established equestrian land. Country Park not only meets planning policy, but delivers real community value by providing safe off-road access for running, walking, cycling and bridleways, more sport than just football. If relocation is not accepted, then I urge enforceable protections must be guaranteed for us. A substantial buffer zone from our boundaries with acoustic banking, soundproof fencing and tall dense planting, elimination of light spill, severe restrictions on use and hours of operation, and removal of existing footpaths off our land, all guaranteed under Section 106 agreements. Under case law Newbury DC versus Secretary of State, such conditions are lawful and clearly justified here. This is not just about visual change. This is about preventing foreseeable harm and protecting lawful existing use. Courts have repeatedly warned against allowing generalised housing need to override statutory protections. When weighed up, the harm here is significant.
Thank you, Mr. Coe. Your time is up.
I urge refusal and at the very least legally binding protection for our land and animals. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Coe? No questions.
None?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right. And now we have a statement by Councillor PC, who couldn't attend today. So Kim is going to read it.
Okay, so Tassley Parish Council unanimously objects to this application, a position that reflects the overwhelming concerns of our residents, and here's why. The application makes no reference to the approved new location of the livestock market. This omission is significant because both the school and the elderly residents' accommodation would fall within the 140 metre odour and noise buffer zone from residential properties. The owners of the cattle market also own an access road, a route omitted from the TGV developers' plans, despite them being required to leave a 20 metre access corridor. Neither SC Ecology nor Natural England raised objections to the effect of air pollution from the TGV development on the nearby Thatcher's Wood and Westwood Covert SSI. Neither did they object to air pollution from a previous planning application on the same site, which at planning appeal the inspector acknowledged that whilst neither objected to that application, this did not alter his conclusion that the development would adversely affect the SSI by reason of ammonia concentration. Our Tassley neighbourhood plan has completed Regulation 14 consultation and is imminent for Regulation 15 submission. Therefore, should bear planning weight when considering this application. Yet this has not been referred to nor taken into account in the planning officer's report.
Bridge North lies some 15 miles from Telford and the M54 corridor on very poor link roads with limited public transport. There is no rail connection with the West Midlands conurbation and no direct road link to the M5, M6 or M1. And its very location would by necessity actively encourage unsustainable travel patterns. After all, who'd want to trudge up the hill from Bridge North with bags of shopping or struggle on an impractical bus service to Wolverhampton or further afield? The proposed development will present a visual change and a change in landscape character within the setting of Grade 2, the Leasos, and the proposed TGV houses would border the Leasos gardens, and these are well within the Leasos setting. The proposed TGV community orchard and neighbourhood park fall well short of mitigating the effect of the proposed development on the Leasos. The Barnwell Manor Wind Energy Appeal Judgment makes clear that the desirability of preserving the settings of listed buildings must be given considerable importance and weight when the decision maker carries out the balancing exercise. Building 1,500 houses and an employment site close to and within Grade 2 listed the Leasos setting can therefore not be justified. The Leasos setting therefore cannot be justified. The proposed football pitch is placed directly beside long-established horse paddocks, posing serious welfare risks from noise, lighting and increased activity. Should SC allow this development to go ahead, we advise the pitch and associated facilities be located close to the proposed primary school and near the entrance of the development to allow for dual use and ease of access for the increased traffic it would inevitably bring. Tassley Parish Council suggests Shropshire Council consider the Bradford Estates proposal sited close to Junction 3 of the M54, which offers 3,000 houses alongside jobs including a tech park, training opportunities and better transport links, and avoids concentrating two major developments in one small parish. For these reasons, Tassley Parish Council respectfully requests that Shropshire Council refuse this application as it stands. Chair.
Thank you. Well, there are obviously no questions on that. There's just nobody here from Tassley. So we move on to Moreville Parish Council and Councillor Anthony Pitchers. Welcome, Mr. Pitchers. Right hand button, yeah.
Lots of emotive buttons pushed there. Good afternoon. In the planning application, emphasis is placed on the fact that the development will adhere to the Garden Village principles as set out in the TCPA publication of 2018. Of these principles, Moreville Parish Council believes the following have not been met. One, that it's small in scale. The government states that effective planning depends on strong evidence, long-term strategic thinking and clear locational criteria. There is little evidence, let alone strong evidence, that this proposal meets this criteria. Two, provider of affordable homes. Garden villages should be made affordable for people on middle and lower incomes and meet the full range of housing needs. How is this going to be achieved? The developer has stated that 20% of the dwellings will be affordable and split between social rented and shared ownership. What in Bridgnorth is considered to be affordable? What are the housing needs? Who is going to manage the rental and shared ownership? Third, a long-standing stewardship undertaking. It should be demonstrated how assets generated by the development process will be managed in perpetuity. New garden villages must demonstrate how such management will be undertaken on behalf of the community. No evidence has been provided as to how such management will be undertaken and by who. In addition, the application places much emphasis on sustainable development, which according to the NPPF's own document means that all plans should meet the development needs of the area and align growth and infrastructure. No evidence has been provided as to what are the development needs of the area. Has a local housing needs assessment been carried out? And how do needs align to growth and infrastructure? Employment land. The proposed development, together with Tassley Gateway, will provide a total of 27.4 hectares of employment land, which according to Mr. Google, equivalates to 38 full-size pitches. Stanmore Business Park covers only just over 17 hectares and is expanding. Chartwell is under construction and Faraday is not at full capacity. What evidence is there that such development is needed and is sustainable? There are many other issues which Morville Parish Council has mentioned in their letter of objection. The lack of allocated time does not allow for providing any details. These include Tasley Gateway and the cumulative effect with TGV, sewage, livestock, market, access strategy, footpaths and sports provision. In conclusion, Morville Parish Council believes that the planning application is unsound and recommends that the Southern Planning Committee rejects it. If the committee decides to grant outline planning permission, Morville Parish Council recommends that the number of known unknowns be investigated and the more detailed plan be resubmitted to the Southern Planning Committee for deliberation. Decisions such as these should not be delegated to the council officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Councillor Pitchers? No questions.
As clear as mud.
Thank you very much. So we now move on to Bridgnorth Town Council and Councillor David Cooper. Welcome, Mr. Cooper. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair and members. Well, I'm David Cooper. I'm currently Town Mayor of Bridgnorth, and I'm going to just outline to you a few things which are supplemental to our previous representations. The proposed allocation of a site southwest of the A458 for a large mixed-use development first emerged 6 years ago. The proposal to build housing across the bypass from the existing built-up area has attracted much local concern about the disconnected nature of the location, the scale of the proposals, and the impact on the town's infrastructure. Given that history, it is somewhat surprising that this proposal should have come forward with such an unconvincing statement of the impact on the town, and with such lightweight proposals to mitigate the impact, particularly on traffic and transport. The proposal appears to have been assessed as an incremental addition to our town, rather than a significant transformation of it. And the mitigations put forward have been of the nature of applying a sticking plaster rather than future-proofing the town. To address that, we put forward specific proposals about active travel and public transport last June. Both drew on established Shropshire Council material, the adopted local cycling and walking infrastructure plan and the Shropshire Bus Service Improvement Plan. We have received no direct feedback, but documents on the planning system suggest that the applicants have made low offers and officers have gone back and asked for more. Despite that, we still at this stage don't have a comprehensive list of proposed mitigation measures. As well as obvious issues about matters such as transport, we feel that wider aspects of the impact on the town need to be considered. The last retail study was 20 years ago. We need to know how well our leisure facilities would cope. Our town centre doesn't seem geared up for more footfall. There's been a deafening silence on our request for those aspects to be studied. Looking at the site itself, the applicants have put forward a master plan which conflicts with the approved proposals for Tasley Gateway and the relocation of the livestock market. That is surprising, given that the draft local plan site brief told them a buffer was required through layout and landscaping. Whilst the master plan is formally illustrative, broad compliance with it is a key assumption defining how much housing can be built and underpinning the various local impact assessments. We do not feel that can be sorted out later at the reserved matter stage. We urge you to refuse the proposal on grounds of conflict with established and committed uses on neighbouring land and concerns over the wider sustainability of the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Are there any questions for Councillor Cooper? Yes, Councillor Hignett.
Thank you, Chair. As Mayor of Bridgnorth, and I know you've mentioned a couple of times about the impact on the infrastructure of Bridgnorth and the problems that it may bring, do you feel there is a possibility that this number of houses being built could help retailers in Bridgnorth Town Centre, could help to keep it vibrant?
Well, that's partly why we wanted another retail study. In the last one, there was significant leakage, particularly of comparison goods shopping to surrounding areas. Merry Hill, Telford, Kidderminster. And on top of that, we now have online shopping, which of course wasn't a feature in those days. There would doubtless be some benefit, but actually we need to get those people into the town centre. So we want that looking at as well. I would question the assumption in the studies which say, oh, this is going to be a great boom for the economy. We need to make sure we can capture it.
Yeah.
Councillor Lovely.
Yes, thank you. From what we've heard so far, normally when these things are proposed, people start saying, oh, it's going to put loads of traffic into the town, it's going to cause mayhem. This is actually built on the bypass, effectively, and that they can actually go straight down over the river and away, and don't actually come in Bridgnorth at all. Is that? Would you agree with that assumption or not?
Well, no. This appears to be somewhat in excess of the established level of growth that we have experienced previously, and it was identified during the examination process for the now abandoned local plan that it would meet a proportion of the unmet housing needs of the Black Country. So the basic proposition is that this is going to attract people into Bridgnorth, quite a considerable number. There is employment on this site, but actually it would only provide half the jobs that the resident population need. We do not, in all honesty, know where people would work. We cannot, in my view, reliably predict where the traffic flows would be. There has been a transport study carried out which modelled traffic essentially based on existing patterns. That identified significant adverse impacts on two main movement corridors, one into the town centre and the other heading towards Wolverhampton, Telford, Stourbridge and Kidderminster. They both featured long traffic queues, and on the one coming into the town centre, there is no engineering solution to expand capacity. Basically, you just have to take the traffic away. On the other movement corridor, it was identified that there would potentially be mitigation by installing traffic lights at another junction. And at the key roundabout at the junction of the A458 and the A442, what was proposed was to repaint the white lines. That isn't sustainable, is it?
Okay. Any further questions? Yep. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we move on to council members, that is Shropshire Council members. And first up is Councillor Connolly. You have 5 minutes.
Chair and committee, I have significant concerns about this application as currently presented. I do not believe the cumulative impact of this proposal, alongside the already approved Tasley Gateway, has been fully or adequately assessed. In total, 2,050 homes. The scale of growth proposed will have a profound impact on Bridgnorth and the surrounding parishes, and the mitigations offered so far do not give confidence that these impacts can be managed effectively. Most of this development sits in the parish of Tasley, not Bridgnorth. Tasley is being asked to absorb this growth, but the infrastructure is extremely limited. No bus services, no cycle lanes, no park and ride, no medical provision, no shops. If this development proceeds without major infrastructure investment, it could risk becoming a car-dependent settlement from day one, and I do not believe this is sustainable, as the negative impacts outweigh the benefits. The delivery of both the employment land and the local centre will be subject to market demand, and this concerns me. Allocation for employment land has already been reduced by 9% and housing increased by 43%. Without providing the right employment and community facilities, it is at risk of becoming a dormitory commuter suburb, the absolute opposite of a garden village concept. Where is the evidence of the demand for employment? I believe our historic livestock market could be at threat. Outline planning permission was granted for it to be moved, originally sited next to open countryside, but now adjacent to the garden village. The applicant's master plan shows houses and a school next to the market, which may not be permissible. If the garden village is approved, restrictive conditions may be imposed on the new market at the reserve matter stage. These restrictions could lead to the closure of the market, as it would no longer be viable. The transport assessment models peak hour delays at 10 junctions across Bridgnorth, and at 6 of these the results are alarming. 3 junctions form the main corridor into Hightown. These are close together, so congestion at one quickly affects the others. The Salop Street, Pound Street, Whitburn Street junction sits within Bridgnorth's long-standing AQMA. No mitigation is proposed for this area, other than upgrading the zebra crossing to a pelican or puffin crossing on Whitburn Street. Modelling suggests queues here could reach 179 vehicles. At St John Street in Lowtown, queues could reach 134 vehicles with delays of 15 minutes. These are not minor impacts. They represent a fundamental change to the functioning of the town. Further assessment should include modelling of Saturday peak traffic, as was done for Tasley Gateway, sensitivity testing of alternative traffic flow patterns, real-world observations of queue lengths along key corridors. Mitigation or conditions should include a Section 106 obligation to deliver key active travel routes, ensuring safe walking and cycling access, in particular LC WIP route B11. Support for significantly improved public transport aligned with Phase 3 of the Bus Service Improvement Plan, including a Bridgnorth Town service every 30 minutes to 11 p.m, including Sundays, improved bus services to Telford, Shrewsbury and Kidderminster, securing the proposed mobility hub on site with a focus on accessibility to the town through public transport and cycling. And please note, Active Travel England's formal recommendation is for a deferral, as it is not currently in a position to support this application and requests further assessment, evidence, revisions and/or dialogue as set out in their response. A 20-mile-an-hour speed limit throughout the whole development. Support the ICB's request for a Section 106 contribution of £1.1 million for Bridgnorth medical practice either on or off the site. Determine what marketing strategies Shropshire Council has for the proposed employment land and the local centre. Address concerns noted by Severn Trent and apply conditions recommended in their comments submitted 31st of October 2025 regarding sewerage. And planning officers facilitate discussions between Tasley Gateway and Tasley Garden Village. I find it incredible that this has not happened already. In conclusion, growth must be planned, sustainable and supported by the infrastructure and services needed to make it work. This application does not provide that assurance. I note the recommendation to delegate powers to officers to finalise conditions and developer contributions. I would ask the committee to consider if this is robust enough. I urge the committee to require the applicant to address these concerns and issues raised by others fully before any approval is considered, and for these reasons ask that this application be deferred. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Councillor Connolly? Okay, look. Thank you. You get to leave the table at this point. Look at you. And so we move on to the next councillor, which is Councillor George Holyhead.
Thank you, Chair, members. Thanks. I'm speaking today because this application is simply not right for Bridge North, not right for Tasley, not right for Moreville, and not right for the wider area we all represent. Let me be very clear from the outset, this proposal is too big, in the wrong place, and the impacts are far too great. First, the location is fundamentally unsustainable. On paper, this is described as a garden village. In reality, it's a huge suburban extension separated from Bridge North by the A458, a major road acting as a physical barrier. Instead of walking or cycling easily into town, people have to cross a busy bypass via at grade crossings, and no footbridge, despite earlier guidance saying one was necessary. This isn't a connected community. It's a dormitory estate, and the evidence shows most residents would still commute out to Telford, Wolverhampton and beyond, because the local employment simply is not there. And remember, the allocation the scheme relies on in the withdrawn local plan was never examined. It was part of a plan the inspectors deemed unsound. So the foundation of putting 1,500 houses here simply does not stack up. Onto highways, which is the biggest issue. Anyone who lives around Bridge North knows our roads are already stretched to breaking point. Bridge North is beautiful, but it's a medieval town. Narrow streets, steep gradients, there's long-standing congestion all throughout the town. And there are numerous severe pinch points in the town at places like Gaskell Corner and at either end of the bypass. I know it was brought up that people could use the bypass to just leave, but anyone around Bristol knows that bypass is regularly gridlocked. One issue on it just blocks the whole place up. And then even the fact is, if they're just using it to leave, they're not bringing money into the town itself. Nothing in this application changes the realities. Yet this development, combined with Tasley Gateway, could add over 12,000 vehicle movements every single day, and that figure is based on the out-of-date 2011 data. The transport assessment doesn't model Saturday peaks, doesn't reflect realistic commuting patterns, and doesn't test the very junctions local people know are the most fragile. If we approve this, we're accepting gridlock as the new normal. The town infrastructure cannot cope. We already heard from residents struggling to access GP appointments, and that our schools are full, and we have no sixth form in town. And what does the developer offer? A primary school that only takes 60 pupils per year, nowhere near enough for 1,500 homes. And a small contribution to outfit extra rooms in the existing medical practice, but no new buildings, no new staff, and no new parking. Having spoken to local doctors, it won't make a jot of difference. The waiting times are just going to go up. And public transport is limited services, no Sunday buses, no evenings, no interchange, no railway links, and no guarantee of improvement. This development actively embeds car dependency, which I think we're all meant to be against nowadays, aren't we? And that goes against the garden village principle. The environmental harm as well cannot be undone. This is some of the best agricultural land we have, grade 2 and 3A. Once it's gone forever. Residents in Tiddlebrook have already flagged legal concerns about increasing runoff onto their land, and they are right. You cannot pump water onto neighbouring land or speed up flows in a way that increases flood. You cannot pump water onto neighbouring land or speed up flows in a way that increases flood risk. Yet the modelling isn't finished, and the developer openly admits flows will increase. There are also serious concerns around pollution impacts on nearby SSI sites, concerns that have previously led to appeal refusals on this very site. We also have heritage impacts. 2 grade 2 listed buildings, and I'm sorry for the pronunciation, the Lizos and Lizos farm, would face permanent change to their setting. The law is very clear. Preserving the setting of listed buildings carries considerable weight. Planting a few trees does not overcome the fundamental issue of placing 1,500 homes estate on their doorstep. There's also a lack of coordination with the approved Tasley Gateway village development. This point cannot be overstated. The master plan ignores the layout of an already approved livestock market. Houses and even a primary school are showing backing onto livestock pens. This is clearly incompatible. Noise, odour, HGVs and early morning activity makes that untenable. Likewise, sports pitches are placed next to long-standing established horse paddocks, posing obvious welfare and safety issues. This is plain poor planning, no joined up thinking, no cooperation with the adjacent landowner, and no attempt to create a coherent place. And finally, I'll just say in conclusion, yes, Shropshire does need homes, but it needs sustainable development in the right places and supported by real infrastructure. This is not it. With this site, the harm is severe and unmitigated for highways, significant for landscape heritage and environmental terms, and unacceptable in terms of infrastructure and it's also opposed by the majority of residents and multiple parish councils, although except for the football team getting a brand new shiny pitch is going to be in favour of it. Members, the National Planning Policy Framework is absolutely clear. If the adverse impacts significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits, we must refuse. In this case, they plainly do. I therefore urge you, for the sake of Bridgnorth, for Moorville, and for Tasley and the surrounding rural communities, to refuse this application. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Councillor Holyhead? No, you're free to leave. Yep. Okay, our final council speaker is Councillor Hoosman. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. Now, I appreciate the need for new homes in Shropshire, including affordable homes and homes for the elderly, plus obviously the creation or possible creation of long-term jobs. I'm also aware of the considerable investment that the developers have put into the plans, and that they've worked closely with the planners trying to mitigate many of the potential issues. Now, the problem that I and my constituents have is that this development is basically a massive extension of Bridgnorth town. The town centre contains the main supermarket, pubs, cafes, the cinema, restaurants, shops, churches, the bus hub, plus the community hospital and medical centre, dentist and vet. I believe the town centre itself would not be able to cope with a significant additional population increase. Vehicle journeys in and out of the town would massively increase, causing congestion not only on the main route in, but then throughout the entire town centre. Finding somewhere to park would become almost impossible once the limited amount of parking spaces are full, and this again causing even more congestion. The air quality, as measured on the main route in, is already poor. In fact, it's one of the worst in the country. With the additional traffic, this would get even worse. It will affect the health of everyone. So medical facilities, as already mentioned in the town, be it the doctor or the dentists, are already creaking under the pressure and again would not be able to cope. Even with a significant investment of the community infrastructure levy and 106, I believe the problems of Bridgnorth town centre itself would remain. So my view is that the development would have a detrimental effect on Bridgnorth town and its residents. I believe these detrimental effects should be a material consideration in the decision-making process of this committee.
Thank you. Very concise. Are there any questions for Councillor Hoosman? Nope. Thank you very much. And our final speaker is Jonathan Burns, who's the agent. Okay. Gentlemen, and you have 6 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicants in support of this application. My name is Jonathan Burns. I'm a Senior Planning Director at Pegasus Group. The proposals before you today are as a result of extensive work with your officers and the local community over the last 6 years. Through the local plan preparation, which proposed to allocate this site, and throughout the application process, we've sought to engage with the local community to seek their views and input to the scheme. Pre-application consultation events were held, along with separate meetings with parish and town councils and adjacent landowners. This engagement has helped to shape the scheme that is presented today. Although the local plan has been abandoned, The applicants remain committed to delivering on the aims and objectives identified by the previous draft allocation. This is demonstrated by the infrastructure-led proposals before you today. The development will deliver a mix of uses, including a new primary school, a local centre providing local retail and commercial uses, specialist older persons' homes, employment space and a country park. This will all be delivered alongside the new homes, including affordable homes, helping to retain young people and families in Bridge North, whilst creating opportunities for those wishing to downsize. The new employment space will provide the opportunity to attract new businesses to the town and allow existing businesses to expand. There is significant market demand for this new employment development, and its delivery will help to reduce the need for residents to travel outside of the town for employment. My clients have already received inquiries from established local commercial developers for the employment space, and discussions are ongoing. The proposals will also deliver a new home for Bridge North Spartans, a grassroots community football club, delivering a 3G all-weather pitch, grass pitches and a pavilion building with associated facilities for wider community use. This has been proposed in response to a need identified through engagement with the community and officers. There is no 3G provision within Bridge North at present, with existing residents having to travel outside Shropshire to access their closest facility. The new 19.4 hectare country park will provide recreational space for new and existing residents, providing opportunities for play, exercise and wildlife. These new recreational areas will extend into and through the site, ensuring all residents are close to a range of play and recreation space. Flood risk and surface water runoff will be managed on site. A drainage scheme has been submitted that demonstrates how runoff from the site will be restricted to the equivalent greenfield runoff rate, plus an allowance for climate change. This drainage scheme will also provide treatment for runoff and deliver a betterment when compared with the existing conditions. The development will deliver significant economic, social and environmental benefits. Economic benefits include the potential creation of new jobs on site, with the employment development expected to support around 1,000 jobs. Increased local expenditure helping to support existing services and businesses in the town, and increased council tax income. Social benefits will be secured through the delivery of affordable housing, specialist later living accommodation, the country park and sports provision, along with the delivery of new services including the primary school and local centre. These will all be available for existing and future residents. Environmental benefits will include the delivery of net zero carbon ready homes, with the residential development being gas-free, using air source heat pumps and solar panels. A minimum of 10% biodiversity net gain will be achieved on site. The development will provide around £20 million of funding towards new infrastructure. This includes funding through a Section 106 contribution to allow the extension of the existing Bridge North medical practice as requested by the NHS Integrated Care Board. Other financial contributions will be secured to support a bus service and off-site highway works, including active travel and junction improvements. Further funding for infrastructure uses will be delivered through the community infrastructure levy payments, with an estimated £2.3 million going to the parish and town councils to spend on infrastructure in their area as they see fit. As required by the previous draft local plan allocation, the development will be delivered in line with Garden Village principles, with a commitment to deliver a design code to guide future reserved matters applications. This design code will be subject to design review by an external panel, consulted on with the local community and agreed with your officers. This will deliver a development of the highest quality and ensure what is promised now is delivered in the future. We welcome and endorse your officers' recommendation, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Chair. My name is Max Whitehead and I'm a Planning Director at Bloor Homes. Bloor are the lead developer of the Tasley Garden Village scheme. I just wanted to take this opportunity to make two brief points. The first point relates to delivery. I'd like to assure members there are no financial, technical or legal impediments to the prompt delivery of this new community by two leading national house builders and, when selected, our commercial delivery partner. Should resolution to grant planning permission be received today, we will work closely with your officers to complete the Section 106 agreement and the design code such that reserved matters applications can be made later this year. The second point is to state that the application before you today represents the culmination of a lot of hard work from my team, but also from Shropshire Council officers. Your officers have worked proactively with us from the outset and have helped shape and improve the development proposals to ensure the scheme does follow the Garden Village principles and is of the highest quality. In my 20 years in this industry, I can say with confidence that this proactive working relationship has resulted in the best and most comprehensive development scheme I've ever been involved in. As such, I commend this application to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dead on time. Congratulations. Are there any questions, starting with Councillor Waite?
At the beginning of your introduction, you said that you've worked closely with the local parish councils over the past 6 years. Aren't they all represented here telling us that they don't want this estate to be built?
Please, another question to be answered.
Yes, we've met with them all, and have spoken at different points throughout the process, and we've made amendments to the scheme following some of their comments. Obviously, one of the comment being we don't want the proposal. We can't obviously agree to, but we have engaged with them and have made changes to the scheme because of that.
Thank you.
Councillor Bagnall.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed that you described the fact that the employment facilities would mean that people didn't need to travel outside of the town in order to find work. Is it a town or is it a garden village? I wonder. You don't have to answer that. I've got two concerns. One being that one of the garden village requirements is that there should be community facilities and social life with a clear and long-term artistic cultural strategy. Now, I don't see anywhere in the plans that we've got for that artistic and cultural strategy. So I'm slightly concerned about that. And I'm also concerned about the fact that you seem to have lots of small play areas and activities around the place, which is lovely, and obviously a brand new sports facility, which is great, and I absolutely understand the delight of the Spartans, and fair enough. However, not all young people are interested in sport, and you have to accept that. And those young people, and there will be a lot of them on this, an estate of this size, those young people who are not interested in sport, what are you going to provide for them? And I accept that it's not up to you to provide everything for them, but there should be some sort of consideration for those young people, because over a period of time, those young people will get bored, and bored young people very often end up kicking off, as do bored adults.
I think we understand the question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just on the town point, I know you said I didn't have to answer it, and that was more in relation to having to travel outside of Bridgnorth for work rather than the specifics of this site. In terms of the garden village requirements and the need for community facilities, obviously there is a proposal for the pavilion building to include community use, and there'll be a community use agreement as part of any transfer of the site to Bridgnorth Spartans. In terms of the artistic and cultural strategy, obviously that's one for future reserve matters. What we have done is ensure that the local centre, which is opposite the school, has sufficient space around it to provide usable, hard standing and open space to create to allow for community events to happen. And that would include some form of sculptures and art, but also space for markets and just people meeting up as well. And I think that the landscape strategy also proposes a bandstand as well within the country park. In terms of your comments on not all children are interested in sport and football, we obviously note that the landscape strategy proposes other recreational facilities, obviously the play areas, the BMX function. Appreciate that's probably classed as a sport, but we can only provide so much. But the fact that we'll put a community use within the pavilion building will give the opportunity for different clubs to hire the facility, use the facility, and so it won't just be available solely to the football club.
Okay, I have a question. What sort of retail units do you envisage will go in the local centre?
Thank you. When we were coming up with the proposals, we were very mindful of the fact that the Tassie Gateway scheme proposes a food store within it, so we didn't want to replicate that. So with the local centre, we're expecting it to be smaller units, and that will include a convenience store of up to around 280 square metres net floor space, and that's within the Sunday trading hours. So it will be your likes of Sainsbury's local, Tesco Express size store focused on walk-in customers. That will be situated alongside a mix of other small units, which will be available for any retailers, service operators, and food and drink operators, based on whether there's any what demand there is at the time. So that could include hairdressers, fish and chip shops, and small comparison specialist goods retailers. The intention of it is not to compete with Bridgnorth Town Centre, because we realise the importance of that, but also to complement what's been proposed at Tasley Gateway.
Okay. Councillor Walmsley.
Thank you. And there's been several comments from speakers throughout the session concerning the amount of employment space that will be provided between this and Tasley Gateway. It's not a particularly easy time for small businesses. I can see there is a lot of workshop and the building space available to them. Why are you confident that you can fill these spaces? And if it starts to become a problem, what would the plan be to ensure that all of this employment space is utilised?
Obviously, the scheme is promoted by house builders. We're not experts on unemployment delivery. What I can say at this stage is that we've had approaches from both national commercial developers on an off-market basis and also a well-respected local commercial developer. So we understand, or we feel confident, that there is going to be some demand for this employment space, and it's certainly in our interests to get that developed as quickly as possible to help pay for infrastructure, to generate cash and pay for the infrastructure. So we're confident that it can be delivered. In terms of the types of uses within, I think the permission that we've asked for is fairly flexible, and you would imagine that a variety of site spaces would be developed by any commercial operator to ensure that, you know, there's the markets out there, there's occupiers ready to go in there. So we're comfortable with what's proposed.
Right, just looking at the planners and transport to my left, do you have any comments you want to make following those presentations? Nobody seems to have burning issues.
We can't. Is there gas?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was just giving you the opportunity. Okay, right, it's open to the floor, beginning with Councillor Hignett.
Thank you, Chair. Although it's on the outskirts of Bridgnorth, I am mindful of what benefits this could bring to the town. As a shop retailer myself, running a food shop, the idea of having an extra 1,500 homes of customers almost on your doorstep sounds attractive if it works. But I am understanding of the fact that if Bridgnorth cannot accommodate many extra people, it could be that this is a downside rather than a positive. If it overwhelms the shops and the number of other retailers that are there, then there is a possibility it could be negative instead of positive. I'm not sure. I do like the idea of the garden village principle. I think it's really good if it's well designed and delivered well. I think I quite like the design of this with plenty of green open spaces, lots of trees. I don't like the suggestion of the possible resiting of the livestock market next to the primary school. I think that's absolutely not sensible at all. Active Travel England have asked for a deferral, and that's a possibility. I'm not sure. Highways, I don't know whether they want to give any comment on the fact that that 4 metre wide toucan crossing on the A458 is really the only, what I regard as safe crossing point that's been proposed as part of this development. Otherwise, I mean, apart from an answer to that question, I'd like to listen to the rest of the debate because I'm really not sure at this stage. Thank you.
Do you want to answer that point, Chris?
Thank you, Chair. Chris Mead, Senior Developing Highways Manager. If I could just ask my colleague Ben to put the access plans back up on the screen, because I think these assist, firstly, in terms of the fact that these are the access drawings, so these are the in-principle access arrangements which are being agreed today for 1,500 dwellings, the other uses and the employment. So the first access is the Ghost right-hand turn lane. Now, this would only come forward when the employment use comes forward. So we have accepted it and we have secured it. But in the event that the employment land was to come at a later date, was to come after the event of the residential, this element will not propagate on the highway until such time that the employment use has actually been confirmed and will actually be delivered with a derived benefit. So this is being secured, but will only come forward when the employment use is actually also secured. The next plan, which shows the first roundabout, we're calling it Z02. Z02 shows you how people would exit from the residential development on the western side. You can see that there are significant levels of infrastructure there. Now, I appreciate on a plan they may not seem specifically grand, but these are probably the most high quality cycling facilities that are proposed for Shropshire, in terms of the accommodation, the quality of them, the width of them, the facility quality that will be offered, and 4 metre wide toucan crossing, which would facilitate crossing of that busy road, halting traffic in every circumstance where someone had to make use of that facility. That will then continue all the way down to the east. Now, we haven't shown you the Tasley Gateway roundabout, but that will intertwine with that feature and will also continue that facility, which will then lead all the way into Bridgnorth for you. If we just go to the Z03 plan now, we'll see a similar arrangement happening in the southeastern part of the development, a smaller compact roundabout because the levels of traffic there are lower. But again, you're seeing exactly the same propagation of high quality cycling offer facility, all the way leading up to Tasley Gateway roundabout, which again has multiple controlled crossings already secured through another planning agreement, which will be delivered as a separate piece of infrastructure via a separate planning application. What's also important to note, although it's not shown on these plans and hasn't been identified specifically, is that this entire section of road is proposed to be reduced from 60 miles an hour to 40 miles an hour to facilitate a more conducive lifestyle choice, to facilitate considering actively travelling from this location to the adjacent town. So in broad strokes, that's the package. It is a significant package. I don't want to jump the gun too much, but also just to note that the Section 106 contribution package, which has also been engaged with this, and I know what people have said about a lack of facility in this location, but we are securing 1.5 million to ensure that bus services operate from this development and will engage with the town adjacent to it. Off-site junction improvements in addition to those that you are seeing here, and in addition to anything from Tasley Gateway of £600,000, and an additional off-site active travel contribution just for walking and cycling improvements to engage the facility between the town of Bridgnorth and this new development to the sum of £1 million. So those can be LC whip, those can be infrastructure strategic plan, but those can come forward through Section 106 contributions, so they will be delivered by the council, and so we can ensure that local communities benefit from the solutions that they think are appropriate in this setting.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I just ask a question on that? This proposed walkway stroke cycleway, does it go all the way down into the town centre? It doesn't just link up with existing footpaths just along in Tadsley on the Wenlock Road, but they continue all the way into the town?
To the level of standard that you're seeing there, that this development is able to achieve, no. The infrastructure within the locality is clearly defined by the location itself and the quality of the footways and cycle routes which are already there. Opportunities to improve those are coming forward, and that's where the £1 million worth of active travel money will be utilised to ensure that those offers are as genuine as possible to people both within Bridgnorth and within the new settlement. But clearly, anyone who's from Bridgnorth knows there are certain restrictions, there are certain areas which are limited. However, in my advice to you in recent planning terms, those would not be sufficiently good reasons to not support the recommendation in front of you.
Okay, Councillor Lumley.
Yes, thank you. It was a question to the planners. What procedures are in place to ensure that all the facilities that have been promised are actually built? Because if this is parcelled up into phases and sections and you've got different developers and they all build just houses, you could get to the end and they haven't give you the school, they haven't give you the Spartans playing field. I'm concerned because that certainly happened in my ward, where there wasn't necessarily that sort of continuance to ensure that it was all provided.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. So in the list of conditions, although we've only set those out as sort of brief headlines, one of those will be to get a phasing plan that comes forward with that, and that will be indicating which aspects will come forward at which stage. That's supplemented then by the Section 106, which has clear triggers, because some of this land, like the primary school, for example, that is being gifted over to us for us to deliver the school, so that we have that control over it. So using both the condition mechanism and the Section 106 and having the agreed phasing plan that we'll be working to, that we will be having the control over the quantums of development, how much housing comes forward in advance of various other aspects of the scheme, and how we prevent all housing occupations occurring before we've got the whole development going forward as we envisage it now.
Okay. Do you have any general comments, Councillor Lumley?
Yes, thank you. I was going to wait a little bit longer, but I'll jump up the queue. It's been mentioned about the draft local plan that was withdrawn. Councillors should remember that this draft consultation went through significant public consultation several times, and it was signed off by Shropshire councillors and actually moved forward. And it was only at the inspector stage that it necessarily failed through the Black Country requirements, and not necessarily because of this site, which was there as an allocation. So it's interesting. I'm a bit conflicted because I, like all of the villages and towns around, are reeling from the requirement of 1.5 million homes and Shropshire's requirement to go up from 1,400 to 2,000 a year. And that because of how it's bumped up quite deliberately, and we've lost our 5-year housing supply, you've got this presumption of sustainability. And so that's taking it away from us. I'm sure Bridgnorth don't want all this, but the next draft local plan that will come out, we'll have even more. That's absolutely guaranteed. And so you talk about it going to Tong, 3,000 houses go to Tong, build it there instead. I can assure you that within 3 or 5 years, that'll be there as well. That's the next thing that's coming because the government have redefined grey belt. And I don't think it'll pass the test for grey belt Tong. So that's going to come. And so that brings me back to, this has come as no surprise to the people of Bridgnorth. One of the town councillors said that this has been 6 years in knowledge. And so I think, unfortunately, we may have to accept it. So I might say something a little bit later on, but I can't read my own writing now. I write like a spider.
Councillor Walmsley.
Councillor Lumby has just said a lot of things that have been going around my head. I came into this very open-minded about what the right decision was, and we've heard lots of reasons to people would like to see this refused, and with evidence to support that decision. But my feeling is that the legal framework that we're having to work within means that some variation on this is inevitably going to go ahead at some point. And the question I have in my mind, and hoping that I can get clarified through conversation with the other members here, is, are we best asking for a deferral in order to tweak what's here, or do we refuse, but with the full expectation that a variation is going to come back in, and that ultimately we are going to end up in a situation where the lack of 5-year land supply in Shropshire, in combination with the, all the other planning changes that the government are pushing through because they want to see a lot more houses built, mean that ultimately some scheme in this area with a very large number of houses is going to get permission. So yeah, that's the question in my mind. I think there's enough good points being raised to make me comfortable with deferring and possibly refusing. But I think also in the long run, something is going to get built.
Councillor Waits.
Thank you, Chair. There have been some really good arguments as to why this shouldn't go ahead, but there's been some really positive reasons as to why it has to go ahead. And we know that one way or another, the government's going to make us do these things. My concern is, as I brought it right at the beginning, that football pitch and sports. And was it Mr. Cope? Was it Mr. Cope? Yeah. He spoke so passionately about the horses and about protecting that area. And that's why I asked, could it be moved? And I don't understand why it can't be moved. There are a lot of spaces around here that football space could be moved to. I'm also concerned about the people who are living near it, because if that car park overfills, those people are going to park on the streets. And if anybody has ever gone to watch Arsenal play, you know that people park on the streets and it causes trouble. Not that I'm an Arsenal supporter, because I'm from Manchester. But people parking on the streets causes trouble, and we've got to be mindful of that as well. I'd be a lot happier if they moved that football pitch somewhere else.
Okay. Councillor Bagnall, if you want to add to what you said before, rather
Yes,
than
please.
repeat it.
Yes, please. Thank you. With regard to the football pitches, I agree that they will have quite an impact, the noise and so on the surrounding landscape, including the livestock that lives there. And positioning that surely closer to the primary school would mean that those can be shared facilities, and also there would be easier access, I would imagine, from the main road. So that's a major point. I also have a concern about the air quality. And about comments made by Severn Trent, who said that they were unable to confirm the extent of works needed to support this development, and that improvements will be made, and I quote, in accordance with our investment plans. We all know that the water companies the public don't consider their investment in their in improving their infrastructure to be sufficiently good. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Hignett.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a couple of points that I didn't make before. I think sometimes we have to remind ourselves this is an outline application. We're only looking at the principle of developing this land as opposed to maybe any other lands. And I know we're talking a lot about the possibility of the design of it and whether things could be altered. I mean, in my mind, the sports pitch is in the wrong place. There's certainly badly inadequate parking spaces. The government is now bringing through legislation to make parking on pavements illegal. And I think the council officers would have a field day there. I've never been to an Arsenal match, I don't know. But I only got to watch my local team and I see cars parking on the pavement in my village. So I dread to think what's going to happen when they've got successful teams, because it sounds like it's a very successful club. I share previous members' comments about noise and light pollution, particularly on land that's used for equestrian use. I've only been horse riding a couple of times in my life and it scared the living daylights out of me. So I know they are skittish animals and personally I don't like them, they're too big, but there we are. I would just like to say something about the tilted balance, because it suggests the following 4 principles that I've made a note of for planning to be acceptable. It says it must be genuinely sustainable, and I'm not convinced whether this is sustainable or not. I've heard what's said about what retail outlets might be there on site and whether it's sustainable because of Bridgenorth being nearby or not. Secondly, it says it must make good use of land. You could argue that both ways. It does make good use of land. It provides houses and helps us to get towards our housing target. But as was mentioned, it's good agricultural land. I'm not convinced it's any better than putting a massive solar farm there. It has to be well designed. I said before, I think it is well designed, apart from 1 or 2 aspects of it, which all could be sorted out at the reserved matter stage. And fourthly, it has to provide sufficient affordable housing, which this seems to, 20% or more, and with some dwellings suitable for elderly people as well. I think that's admirable. I'm not convinced that if it was approved at outline, that it should all be delegated to officers. Nothing against our planning officers. I think they're marvellous. But I think if we were to approve this, then it would need to come back to this committee at reserve matter stage, because I think there are a lot of questions that would need answering at that stage. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Lumb.
Councillor Hignett brought up the point I was going to say about the outline planning, and things can get moved around, and I certainly would hope that. Having been on this committee for quite a while, I was on it when I first started, when we had Ironbridge, and that was for 1,000 houses, and the councils there and a lot of people were against that. But actually, it was all part of the greater good for where the houses should be, and the reality was we were reusing the derelict land. And so that went through, and that's moving along quite nicely. And I think this could be the same sort of thing. So because of that, I want to put a proposal that we accept the officer's recommendation, but as Councillor Hignett said, that we have reserve matters come back to this committee in relation, so that we can be confident that the sports pitch, the school, and in relation to the market and a few other things, leaseos, that are all sorted out. So that's my proposal.
Okay, so we have a proposal. Before I ask for a seconder, could I just bring in Councillor Taylor to add some extra points?
Thank you, Chairman. I've got all sorts of misgivings in every direction about this application. Whereas I'm accepting what everybody has said, that sooner or later we're going to have the development whether we like it or not, possibly imposed upon us. And the best we can do is to try and mitigate those circumstances and get it right for Bridgenorth, for the people that will possibly live in this community in the future, and for Shropshire, and for the existing parish councils, town council, etc., that are going to be heavily affected by it. Chairman, I was in discussion with one of the officers last week about the corporate plan, not the Shropshire plan, the corporate plan, where they're having to think ahead for the up to 2050. I should be 106. So it's not likely to affect me at 2050. But some of the things that we have to try and think to the future of, Chairman, that should be included in this, because obviously this is going to be a brand new community and it'll be just really be getting established in 2050. And we've got to think that there's going to be an awful lot more older people around. I don't see any provision in any of this for accommodating lots more older people. Lots more people nowadays, they live alone, but they still want 2, 3 and 4 bedroom houses. They're just them rattling around like beans. The population growth overall is going to be at 20%. So yeah, they've got to have somewhere. We have to play our part in accommodating it. But there's aspects of this design and the whole concept about we're putting down a brand new community. Normally we're just looking at bricks and mortar and bits of road and that as a planning thing, but this is a total different, it's on a much bigger scale altogether. We are planning for the future for a community. Now, is that community going to be a bolt on to Bridgnorth, or is it going to be a separate community with its own identity and its own facilities? Yes, we're giving there's built some in there, some provisions and everything, but to be honest, it's all a little bit Rupert Bear, bit idealistic. Oh yeah, we'll throw a sports facility in there. Oh yes, we'll do this. Oh yes, we'll do that. I know the officers can only plan for the framework that is given to them, but we've got to try and make the balance to get the best of everything for everybody. And I would agree with Councillor Lumby's comments that, and I would second it, that it is moved, but I'm only going to support it if we can get the democratic oversight, because I trust the officers. It's not with anything against the officers or anything like that, but I just feel that for something on this scale, that councillors should be taking the responsibility for it. It isn't something that in the future.
I think that point is made, Councillor Taylor, and I suspect the committee will be very much in favour of reserved matters coming back to this committee, as we have in Ironbridge, and we've seen several bits of Ironbridge come recently to this committee. So yeah, now there are a number of issues just before we wind up, but I mean the common thing coming out is the location of the sports pitches. You know, it's one of the first things I picked up because of this issue, that it's actually down a side road, and that's not really suitable. It needs to be on the spine road, and that would make a lot more sense. Details about the amount of parking can be negotiated. That, you know, that could be at the REM stage and reserved matters stage. So there's that. I'm still concerned about the location of the livestock market. We're having two things here that are a bit uncoordinated, and we really need to see them together in detail at some point. So we do ensure there's enough buffer, because livestock markets are noisy and they're smelly too, although I don't terribly mind that, but they can be very noisy. So that's an issue we have to look at. The bus services is now getting down to detail. We've heard that we have money for it, and integrating that with existing bus services to ensure we get a sustainable framework for the future is something again which is at the detail stage. But it's actually very important because, well, we have one big estate still being built outside Ludlow that you can't physically get buses on because there's no turning circle for them. And so we have to ensure that everything's nicely integrated. And that works. That I am concerned about traffic going into town and air quality, which largely in the future will actually come from brakes and tyres rather than exhausts as we move to a sort of electric life. On the other hand, vehicles will be heavier and we'll get more potholes as a result. But there's still a lot of pollution from the tyres and the brakes of cars. Nobody's got round to solving that. You spoke about housing for older people. I think, again, that can be reserved matters stage to when we look at that. And one of the things I particularly want to pick up is ensuring there's adequate housing for disabled people who are not always elderly, but you need wider doors. Some of the fittings you can put in an ordinary house, but some of it actually it's much better if it's done at design stage and there's proper disabled access, because we have a high level of disability in this country, and so we need to ensure we provide for that. So generally, I mean, the point's been made that if we turn this down, it'll come back in some form. Well, actually, if we turn it down, it'll come to an appeal. It's pretty obvious what would happen at an appeal from all the other judgments that have been made, and the pressure the government is putting on us. Now, I don't think anybody around this table agrees with the housing targets, which are a hell of a stretch for a rural county like Shropshire. However, the powers that be in the centre are saying that's what we must do. And if we don't plan them in a decent way, then we'll just get speculative development. And most of those are not of this standard. They're really quite poor. So I think I have to vote for it with the additional condition that reserved matters come back to the committee. So are there any final comments before we go to vote? Councillor Walmsley.
So is it possibly a process question, but I am concerned particularly about the location of the sports field and the livestock market. I understand what we're saying about reserved matters coming back, but I would be happier deferring and having drawings in front of us that we were then voting on. Can I put that forward as a proposal?
Well,
I would say.
Okay, we have a forwarder and a seconder for deferring. However, we have an initial proposal and we vote on that first. We vote in those orders. So, yeah, sorry, everyone should come in. Oh, Lynn.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to confirm that in my report I've noted that there will be up to 1,500 dwellings of mixed type, tenure and density, including homes for first-time buyers, 20% of the overall provision as affordable homes, residential extra care or specialist care and housing which can be made adaptable for the disabled, in addition to family housing. Can I also advise members that, remind members that with regards to Severn Trent, under current legislation, a developer has the right to connect to the public foul network to drain foul water, and to do so at the nearest or most convenient point on the existing network. In addition to this right, Severn Trent has a statutory duty to provide any network reinforcement that may be required to accommodate the flow generated by such a new development. Finally, I would like to advise that the allocated sites in the withdrawn draft local plan will be continuing into the next local plan. The next local plan will contain all those draft local sites and additional sites. So this site will be continued into the next local plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, so
Sorry, no, there's not a deferral vote on the table here, but it might impact how some people are thinking. So I just want to be clear on this is an outline application with all matters reserved. So apart from access, principal means of access. So these things can be, well, they're not actually, these are indicative plans. So this isn't the final layout. So I just want that to be clear when you're thinking that these are the things that will come out through the conditions, reserve matters, etc. So whilst there is a proposal, that's not the fixed proposal of the location of the Spartan. Well, I know it's not fixed, but that where, you know, it's talking about the Spartans will be. So I just want that to be clear for members when they're voting.
yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to defer. But I think we should go for approval, or if the committee doesn't want to approve it, for rejection. Councillor Lund.
Yeah, I've got particular concern that if you've got a second proposal that is deferment after my proposal, that councillors may think, well, it's not a problem, I'll vote against this because then I can always defer it. If it's turned down, if my proposal, then it's rejected, is it not? So how can you then defer it?
Yeah, if your proposal is, so if there's more against your proposal and your proposal fails, so then we take the second proposal and we vote on the second proposal then. Okay.
Councillor Walmsley.
So this is definitely a process question. If it were deferred, and I've said I would like more detail about where the sports pitch and how the livestock market was going to be dealt with. Sorry, if it was accepted but with reserved matters back to the committee at a future date, would we be able to say, well, we're still not happy with what's happened with the sports pitch and the livestock market, and then turn it down then? Or is it a case of once we've accepted it, then it's being built one way or another?
Yeah, I mean, what we're not agreeing the position of the sports pitch today. What we're doing at the moment is we actually give some strong feedback to officers and to the developers about things that we feel need to be changed to get through reserve matters.
Reserve matter stage, we can say, well, we're still not happy. You've got to try again.
Yeah. Okay.
So we've got a proposal on the table to accept the officer's recommendation, which was approval of the outline planning permission with delegated powers to officers to finalise the conditions based on those set out in Appendix 1 and securing of the developer contributions as set out in paragraph 6.4.2 of the report, including the completion of a Section 106 agreement, and that reserve matters are to come back to committee. So if you can indicate whether you're voting for, against or abstaining, please. Caroline Bagnall.
Against.
Nick Hignett. Nigel Lumby.
For.
Colin Taylor.
For.
Beverly Waite.
For.
Sam Walmsley.
For.
And Andy Boddington. For. Okay, so that's approved then.
That's approved. So we'll just pause for a couple of minutes while the public leave. Otherwise we'll have to shout.
Yes.
So,
I don't bring one from upstairs.
right. Right. If you want to leave the room, could you do so quickly as the committee meeting's continuing? No. Okay. Could we have quiet, please? The committee is still continuing. We're not at the end of the agenda. Right. Committee, the next bit's fairly routine anyway. It's the schedule of appeals and decisions, which you no doubt will have read. That's only to note, which is straightforward. And well, we have literally 5 seconds left in the committee. So the next meeting will be here at 2 o'clock on the 24th of March. I'll see you then, if not before.